Top 5 musicians who hated Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen, born on September 23, 1949, in Long Branch, New Jersey, is an iconic American singer, songwriter, and performer known as the Boss. Rising to fame in the 1970s with his E Street Band, Springsteen blended heartland rock with poetic lyrics, often reflecting working-class struggles. His breakthrough album, Born to Run, 1975, catapulted him to stardom, followed by legendary records like Darkness on the Edge of Town, The River, and Born in the USA, a master storyteller. Springsteen's music resonates with themes of hope, resilience, and the American dream. With more than 20 Grammy Awards and an Oscar, he's not only a rock icon, but also a cultural voice. Beyond music, he's authored a memoir and starred in Broadway performances. Bruce remains a symbol of authenticity, passion, and enduring artistry in American music history. Although Bruce Springsteen is beloved, several musicians have openly expressed resentment, calling him overrated, unoriginal, or even outdated for personal and unexpected reasons. Why Van Morrison hates Springsteen? Though Bruce Springsteen has long been hailed as one of the most influential voices in American rock, not everyone in the music world shares this admiration, especially Van Morrison. Behind the scenes, Morrison has expressed sharp resentment toward Springsteen, accusing him of copying not just his musical tone, but also his stage demeanor. According to sources close to Morrison, his anger escalated after watching a live performance video of Bruce in Amsterdam. The Northern Irish singer-songwriter reportedly stormed out of the room, muttering bitterly, "He's stolen my entire 1970s stage act." Morrison's accusations run deeper than mere stage antics. He's pointed to similarities in Bruce's gritty vocal style, spontaneous monologues during live sets, and emotionally charged delivery, all elements Morrison had pioneered in albums like Astral Weeks and Moondance. What particularly stung was Bruce's frequent praise of Astral Weeks, which Morrison viewed not as flattery, but as appropriation. To him, it wasn't homage. It was theft disguised as admiration. Unlike Morrison, Springsteen has never retaliated publicly. He has consistently shown respect for Morrison's artistry, citing Astral Weeks as a spiritual influence and often describing Morrison as one of the greatest voices of his generation. Yet this admiration only seems to deepen Morrison's contempt. The more Bruce celebrates Van's legacy, the more the Belfast-born artist perceives it as a reminder of what he believes was stolen from him. The irony lies in how their paths diverged. Springsteen turned into a global cultural icon, the Boss, with stadium tours and patriotic anthems, while Morrison, though critically revered, has remained more elusive and temperamental. Some music historians argue that Morrison's bitterness stems not only from artistic jealousy, but from a long-standing frustration with being overlooked by the mainstream, a space Springsteen dominates. Ultimately, it's a one-sided rivalry. Bruce Springsteen has never spoken negatively about Van Morrison, choosing silence over scandal. Perhaps it's his way of showing the very kind of dignity and grace that Morrison believes he lacks. Regardless, the tension remains a curious footnote in rock history, an example of how even giants of the industry can clash over legacy, influence, and the blurred lines between inspiration and imitation. Keith Richards versus Springsteen feud. If Van Morrison's resentment toward Bruce Springsteen was rooted in artistic rivalry, Keith Richards's distaste adds a sharper, more biting layer to the tension. Known for his blunt honesty and zero tolerance for what he deems inauthentic, Richards has never shied away from expressing disdain toward artists he believes are manufactured or overly theatrical. Bruce Springsteen, in his eyes, fits that mold. It all started in the early 1980s, when Springsteen's fame soared and comparisons to the Rolling Stones began circulating in the media. Richards reportedly found this laughable. To him, Bruce was a well-packaged act, a performer who studied rebellion but didn't live it. While Richards and his Stones bandmates were dodging arrests, courting chaos, and living the gritty blues life, Springsteen was cultivating a blue-collar persona rooted more in storytelling than in lived experience. What particularly irked Richards was the theatrical nature of Bruce's performances, from the dramatic drop-to-your-knees solos to the emotional sermons mid-show. Keith saw it all as staged, rehearsed emotion. Rock and roll isn't church, Richards allegedly quipped to a close friend after seeing a Springsteen show. And this guy preaches too much. Musically, Richards was also unimpressed. Though Bruce clearly drew inspiration from 1960s rock, Motown, and soul, Keith felt it was done without originality. In private conversations, he would mock the E Street Band's polished sound, comparing it to a bar band with a Broadway budget. For someone like Richards, who believes that imperfection is what gives music its soul. Springsteen's refined production and emotional bombast were unforgivable sins. And yet, like with Morrison, Springsteen never fought back. He continued to express admiration for the Stones and called Keith Richards the heartbeat of rock and roll. Richards, however, remained unmoved. At an awards ceremony where both were honored in the same night, Richards was notably cold and refused to share a photo op with Bruce. Despite the public silence from Springsteen, the unspoken feud still lingers among fans and insiders. It's not just about music, it's about what defines authenticity in rock and roll. To Richards, Bruce might be talented, but he's not real in the sense that rock legends should be, and in a genre built on rebellion and rawness, that, to Keith, is the ultimate betrayal. Newman versus Springsteen, artistic clash. Following Keith Richards' criticisms and Van Morrison's accusations of imitation, the next unexpected voice of disapproval comes from Randy Newman, a master satirist and one of America's most respected songwriters. Known for his razor-sharp lyrics and darkly humorous social commentary, Newman offered a contrasting lens through which to view Bruce Springsteen. And while his critique wasn't rooted in personal animosity, it was deeply rooted in artistic standards. Newman, in multiple interviews, has openly stated his admiration for Prince, calling him a bold and fearless creator. In comparison, when asked about Bruce Springsteen, he was far more lukewarm. Bruce doesn't come close to Prince when it comes to songwriting, Newman once remarked. He didn't mince words. For him, Prince embodied an unpredictable genius that challenged musical norms, whereas Springsteen, to Newman, sometimes seemed too conventional, too confined within the blue-collar rock mythos. However, Newman did have one notable exception: the album Nebraska. Released in 1982, Nebraska was a stripped-down, home-recorded project that diverged sharply from the E Street Band's grandiose sound. Newman described it as haunting and literary, praising its bleak storytelling and minimalist aesthetic. For a songwriter like Newman, who values raw, emotional honesty and character-driven narratives, Nebraska showed him what Springsteen was truly capable of. But that admiration was bittersweet. Newman often expressed disappointment that Springsteen didn't continue down that darker, riskier path. He had something unique in Nebraska, Newman said. But then he went back to stadium anthems and chest-thumping rock. I would have liked to see more of the writer from that album. In Newman's view, Springsteen's return to mainstream, radio-friendly sound after Nebraska felt like a retreat from artistic bravery. Despite these criticisms, Newman never resorted to personal jabs. His issue wasn't with Bruce as a person. It was with choices made in the pursuit of commercial success over artistic evolution. In the end, Randy Newman's dissatisfaction reveals more about his own values as a songwriter than it does about Springsteen's talents. But it also raises a powerful question. What happens when an artist flirts with genius but doesn't fully commit to it? Todd Rundgren versus the boss. Randy Newman may have criticized Bruce Springsteen's creative choices with disappointment, but Todd Rundgren took things a step further, into open satire. For Rundgren, the entire mythology surrounding Springsteen as the blue-collar American hero wasn't just tired, it was ripe for parody. And in one of the most ironic twists in rock history, that very act of mockery catapulted Rundgren into commercial success. In the mid-1970s, Rundgren teamed up with songwriter Jim Steinman and singer Meat Loaf to produce the now legendary album Bat Out of Hell. But what many fans didn't know was Rundgren's true intent behind the project, as he would later reveal in interviews. Bat Out of Hell was, in part, a direct satire of Bruce Springsteen's bombastic style, specifically the melodrama, the romanticized working-class narratives, and the over-the-top musical arrangements. To make the satire even sharper, Rundgren recruited two musicians from Springsteen's very own E Street Band, drummer Max Weinberg and pianist Roy Bittan. This wasn't a coincidence. Rundgren wanted to embed the sound of Springsteen into the DNA of the record, only to stretch it to theatrical absurdity. He once said the album was like Bruce Springsteen on steroids, if his stories were written by Wagner. And yet, in an ironic twist, the joke was on Rundgren. Bat Out of Hell didn't just succeed, it exploded. The album sold over 43 million copies worldwide, becoming one of the best-selling albums of all time. Meat Loaf's theatrical vocals, Steinman's operatic songwriting, and Rundgren's slick production struck a chord with audiences around the world. But instead of feeling vindicated, Rundgren was reportedly bitter about the outcome. The very thing he designed to poke fun at became a celebrated epic in its own right. And while the album solidified his place in music history, it also reinforced the larger-than-life appeal of the type of rock hero Rundgren had tried to ridicule. In interviews, Rundgren rarely holds back his disdain for the cult of Springsteen. He's criticized what he calls America's obsession with the underdog hero archetype, suggesting that Bruce has become a symbol, not an artist. To him, the worship of Springsteen says more about the audience than the man himself, a reflection of a culture clinging to fantasies of noble struggle and redemption. And so, Todd Rundgren's complicated relationship with Bruce Springsteen is one of irony, satire, and unexpected success. In mocking the myth, he inadvertently helped cement it. Why Lydon hates Springsteen. Following Todd Rundgren's ironic disdain for Bruce Springsteen's myth-making, the next wave of criticism came with far more venom, from punk's most confrontational voice, John Lydon, also known as Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols. Unlike others who took issue with Springsteen's musical style or commercial success, Lydon's hatred ran deeper. It was about cultural identity and ideological war. To Lydon, Springsteen didn't just represent a genre of music he found dull, he symbolized everything wrong with the American dream. While Bruce was seen by millions as the voice of the working class, Lydon saw him as a polished mascot of American nostalgia, what he once referred to as a leather-jacketed billboard for a fantasy that never really existed. It wasn't just the music that annoyed him, it was the image, the carefully curated aura of blue-collar grit and sentimental patriotism. Lydon, born in the gritty realities of post-industrial London, came of age in a world where survival meant rebellion. The Sex Pistols weren't trying to inspire hope. They were tearing down illusions. So when Springsteen's heartfelt ballads like Born to Run or Thunder Road painted romantic pictures of escape and youthful longing, Lydon didn't hear poetry. He heard cliches. "That guy's a snooze," Lydon once quipped in an interview. He raps empty Americana in a nice leather coat and sells it to people desperate for a past that never existed. But perhaps the most biting part of Lydon's disdain was his dismissal of Springsteen's perceived authenticity. While Bruce built a reputation for being grounded, humble, and true to his roots, Lydon saw it as a calculated performance. "Springsteen's not a poet, he's an actor," Lydon said. "He plays a role better than most. I'll give him that. But that's not rebellion. That's branding." It's important to note that Lydon's feud with Springsteen was never personal. There's no record of a confrontation or even a rebuttal from Bruce. The animosity was symbolic. It reflected the larger cultural chasm between the raw, confrontational energy of British punk and the introspective, often nostalgic narrative of American heartland rock. For Lydon, Springsteen was a relic, clinging to old myths in a world that needed radical truth. And so, while Bruce Springsteen continues to be celebrated as a musical icon, John Lydon remains one of the few who loudly and proudly refuse to buy into the legend. Bruce Springsteen's lasting American legacy, despite the cultural clashes and vocal critics like John Lydon, Bruce Springsteen's musical legacy remains one of the most profound and lasting in American history. While some may question his authenticity or challenge the romanticism of his lyrics, what cannot be denied is the emotional, cultural, and political weight that his body of work carries. Springsteen is not just a rock star, he is a chronicler of the American experience. From the moment Born to Run blasted onto radios in 1975, Springsteen's voice became a vessel for working-class dreams, frustrations, and endurance. His songs painted vivid portraits of rusted towns, empty highways, and blue-collar resilience. Tracks like The River, Badlands, and Born in the USA did not just entertain. They told stories, raw, poetic, and often unflinching, even when misinterpreted, as Born in the USA often is. The power of his message resonates through generations. What sets Springsteen apart is his commitment to sincerity. He never hid behind theatrics or trendy production. His concerts, often stretching beyond 3 hours, are testaments to grit, connection, and mutual catharsis. For millions of fans, watching Bruce perform is more than attending a concert. It's attending a revival of soul and spirit. Beyond the music, Springsteen's legacy is intertwined with activism and empathy. He has consistently used his platform to champion social justice, labor rights, and compassion for the disenfranchised. His Nebraska album, stripped down and bleak, remains one of the most haunting reflections on American despair and violence. In contrast, The Rising, inspired by the 9/11 attacks, is a work of healing and hope. Bruce's influence also extends into the literary world. His 2016 autobiography, Born to Run, and his Broadway show have drawn praise for their honesty, introspection, and narrative strength. These efforts cement his status not just as a songwriter, but as a modern-day American storyteller. In the end, the true legacy of Bruce Springsteen isn't just the anthems or the accolades. It's the quiet moments his songs captured, the heartbreak of missed chances, the longing in small-town streets, the pride in picking yourself up one more time. For all the criticism, Bruce's music still gives voice to those who often go unheard, and that, perhaps, is his greatest gift. Power through the boss's vulnerability. Following the powerful legacy Bruce Springsteen has built, one can't help but reflect on the deeper lessons embedded in his music and life. Beyond the guitars, sold-out arenas, and political statements, lies a man whose story offers timeless insight into perseverance, authenticity, and the human spirit. One of the most powerful lessons we draw from Bruce's journey is the importance of staying true to your roots. Despite achieving global fame, Springsteen never forgot his working-class background. His songs continued to give a voice to factory workers, war veterans, and everyday people chasing the American dream. He reminded us that greatness doesn't require abandoning where you came from. It demands honoring it. Another lesson is his unwavering authenticity. In an industry often fueled by image and reinvention, Bruce stood out by staying consistent in message and mission. Whether singing about personal heartbreak or national identity, he didn't sugarcoat reality. Albums like Nebraska and The Ghost of Tom Joad showed that honesty, even when uncomfortable, can be the most powerful form of art. Springsteen's story also teaches resilience. He battled depression, creative doubts, and public scrutiny, yet continued to evolve. From arena rock anthems to introspective acoustic ballads, Bruce adapted without losing himself. That adaptability is a key takeaway. Growth doesn't mean changing who you are, it means expanding what you can be. Finally, his story reminds us of the value of connection. His concerts weren't just performances, they were communal experiences, where pain and hope were shared across thousands of voices. In a divided world, Bruce's music built bridges. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is that even a single voice, when honest and brave, can resonate across generations. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more incredible journeys.